Well, I've got 5:35, so I'm going to go ahead and get started with the meeting. Thank you for attending. This is the second of three meetings that we're doing as online community meetings talking about our wastewater treatment plant upgrade project. Today, we're going to go through some of the plant design considerations and focus on the engineering that's going on for the plant itself. My name's Ron Edwards. I'm the manager for the Water and Sewer District. We will watch a video from our architect, Tanner Skelton, that's been working on the plant design and the aesthetics for that plant. And then Scott Youngworth, an engineer from AE2, is on the call and will be going into more detail as far as the treatment plant design work. We'll talk about the project timeline, cost estimates, and then also about the 1% resort tax vote that's coming up May 5th. Danny Burchwell's on the call, and I'm going to ask him to talk about that for a few minutes. And we'll follow up with questions. I'll also have the chat feed running, so if you have questions, feel free to type them into the chat stream, and we'll try to answer those as we get them. This is a picture of our current wastewater treatment plant. It's a SBR, which stands for Sequencing Batch Reactor. It's an acronym for the type of plant it is. It's a 650,000 gallon a day plant. We put it online in 2004. Cost of it was $11.5 million. In 2020 dollars, this plant would have been $21 million. And we typically build these in 20-year increments. The growth of Big Sky has forced us to start working on a plant upgrade sooner rather than later. So we've been working on this for almost 2 years now, looking at plant options and style of plants for the expansion work. We did a big study looking at the treatment options that are available to us and have selected the MBR process as the upgrade. This is one of the renderings that our architects have given us showing the new plant aerially and then kind of an elevation drawing there. We've got a few different styles to look at, but this I think captures the look of the new facility pretty well. Everything on the west side is what's proposed to be new, and the type of plant is called an MBR, or membrane bioreactor. It's a significant upgrade to the type of treatment plant, and the reason for moving to this type of technology is that it does a better job of treatment and removing nutrients from the waste stream. We're looking to continue irrigation for golf courses, snowmaking, indirect potable recharge, all of which require us to treat to higher levels. And so this plant, we feel, is a good option for that. This is a video that I asked our architects to provide that gives us kind of their work as far as the plant itself and the architectural and the look of the plant. So I'm going to run this.
Hi, my name is Tanner Skelton. I'm a project manager with 45 Architecture in Bozeman, Montana. I wanted to walk everyone through the Big Sky Water Resource Recovery Facility expansion. The expansion site lies just west of the existing facility. Most likely, this new expansion can be broken up into two phases, but today we'll talk about everything as one complete design. The expansion can be broken out into three major forms. The first form, which you can see in blue, will be the headworks building. The second form, which you can see in yellow, will be the main basin area. And the third form that you can see in red will be a control building. This building will hold offices, blower rooms, chemical storage, a garage, and mechanical and electrical rooms. There are several unique but exciting design obstacles on this project. The first one is grading. There's quite a bit of grade on the site that we will have to account for. The question is really, how do we control the grade? Where do we strategically use retaining walls to create flat sites and to create visual interest to the overall design? We will also need to control the grade in order to create easy and accessible circulation throughout the site, and that's both for pedestrians and vehicular circulation. In some areas, the facility is quite tall, and that's driven by the need for bridge cranes to move equipment in and out of the facility. The question is, how do we use design elements to bring that scale down? To go along with scale, massing is an issue as well. How do we use materials and design elements in order to break up the overall masses? The final design obstacle is overall design. How do we make the facility fit with the design and aesthetic of Montana and Big Sky? Our inspiration came from the simple but beautiful forms of the grain elevator, which are scattered throughout our state. The clean lines, varying roof forms, unpredictable massing, and durable materials are the highlights of our inspiration. We wanted to use these qualities, but in a modern and contemporary way that fit in with the Big Sky landscape. Because of the nature of the precast concrete that we'll be using at the facility, we were limited on the number of bump outs and roof pitches that we had at our disposal. We tried to take advantage of every single opportunity that we could. 3 predominant gable roofs break up the massing of the overall form, and 1 shed roof at the Headworks building towards the west anchors the facility at the end. At the main basin, we are proposing a slat wall system that would break up the amount of concrete visible to the eye. This screening would not only break up the harshness of the overall concrete look, but it would also act as a guardrail on the second level when people are on top of the basin. We tried to bring down the overall scale using 2 design elements. The first being the canopy that runs along the perimeter of the facility. The horizontal line helps break the overall mass in half. It also acts as an important sheltering element that protects anybody who's walking around the edge of the facility. Traditional timber posts and beams will be the structure for the canopy. This style of structure can be found throughout Big Sky. The nature of the wood will also help soften the exposed concrete shown on the first level. The second thing we did was, instead of bringing all of the materials from the roof to the ground floor, so we broke them primarily at the canopy. The materials that we're proposing are all timeless, durable, and can also be found throughout the state of Montana in both contemporary and historic architecture. During the design process, we will also be very conscious of the cost-effective nature of the materials that we choose. At the control building, where there are low-slope roofs, we are proposing a gray standing seam metal roofing and siding material. At the gable roofs that help break up the overall form, we are proposing a corrugated metal. We are also showing that the corrugated metal is a bolder color, such as a black or a dark gray, to help emphasize those specific elements. Precast concrete will be the primary structure used throughout the facility, but we don't want to leave it exposed everywhere, going back to the scale and the form issues of the overall building. We want to be strategic where we show it and leave it exposed. The final material that we're proposing is what we're calling a composite wood slats, but it won't actually be wood. We're going for something more durable. It would be made of a composite material and potentially even metal with the appearance of wood. The project is currently in the schematic phase, so we still have plenty of time to make improvements and tweaks, but we feel like the design is currently at a point to where we need district board feedback. At 45 Architecture, we are always open to any suggestions that could help to improve the overall product. This is your facility, and we want to do whatever we can to make it perfectly fit the Big Sky community. Thank you so much for your time.
All right, so that video again from our architect. We used architects for the first phase we built in 2002, and you just don't get to put up wood sheds around Big Sky, so we wanted to kind of fit with everything else that we've got here and look decent. So next, we're going to let Scott Youngworth kind of get into some of the more detailed engineering issues. We've got a difficult site with this. It's small, got grade. We've got aesthetic issues. We're trying to be mindful as we're right next to the community park. And so we have spent a fair amount of time with our engineers trying to work through some of these issues as we work on the design. So Scott, I'm going to let you take over.
Okay, thanks, Ron. As Ron said, my name is Scott Youngworth. I'm a project engineer with AE2S in Bozeman, Montana. And today I'll talk a little bit about the overall project and specific to the site grading, the building layouts, some of the features of the building, some of the construction phases, including phase 1 and phase 2 expansion. I'll go through the Revit model, which is the tool we've been using for the collaboration and 3D models and drawings and design of the building and structures. And then also go through some of the repurposing of the existing facility and what our plan is for that, and then end with project schedule and project cost. There we go. So like Ron had said, and Tanner as well, we had a few challenges on the site, mostly related to grading and wanting to maximize the treatment capacity of the site and the available footprint. The district did, previous to this project, acquire some land to the west of the existing treatment facility. So our new grading plan shows so this just showing phase 1 and phase 2 structure, and then our main access roads will be on the east side, similar to accessing the existing facility, and then to maintain and have enough space and be able to construct phase 2 in a separate construction project. And so we needed to develop the grading to accommodate that. And then the other thing that we're up against is building into the side of the hill, and what that was requiring is needing at least temporary shoring or retainage on this northwest corner over here. And so our plan is to just go ahead and build a retaining wall over here during phase 1 construction, and then work with grade and grade that out to kind of a flatter spot in that northwest corner, which is kind of where my cursor is showing right here, and up to the north of the Headworks building. And so we'd have an access on that side of the facility, and then on the east side, and then the front as well. And then on the east side over here, where we have the main membrane treatment facility, we'd have some chemical storage and chemical room here where this garage door is, and then needed to grade this whole area out in front on the east side as level as possible, so we can get chemical supply trucks in and out of here relatively easily. And then the image on the right here just shows another isometric view of the grading and where the building lies on the site, with the retaining wall in the back here. And all of the elevations in the headworks building were driven by the hydraulic profile and the hydraulics of the existing sewer going into the headworks building. And then we're pumping from the headworks to our treatment basins and then gravity flow from there to our membrane tank. So go to the next slide here. So the building layout consists of, for phase one, we have our headworks building on the left-hand side here. For the main level, within the headworks building, we have our screening room, which contains our mechanical screens where we're going to be removing some of the grit and heavier debris and material from the raw wastewater. And then within that same structure, we'll have a separate mechanical and electrical room. And then wastewater will be pumped from a wet well down at a lower level up to our treatment process basins. And in this configuration, we're having 3 different trains, which allows us flexibility to be able to shut one train offline for maintenance purposes, and then run all 3 trains during a higher flow event. And then on the right-hand side, or the east side of the site, we'll have our membrane treatment building, which will house our membrane tanks and our membrane cassettes and modules, and all our process equipment, including our pumps and blowers, chemical room, chemical feed systems for cleaning membranes, electrical room on the lower level, and then a shop garage space that will be between phase 1 and phase 2 expansion buildings. And then the upper level that we have on the membrane treatment building has a control room, a bathroom, a lab space, a mechanical room, and then the garage shop space is 2 levels. And as Tanner was describing, a lot of the roof lines and size of the building were driven by the process equipment and the fact that we have a bridge crane running over the membrane tanks, so operators can pull out the membrane cassettes and drop them in the garage space for maintenance and or if they need to be replaced in the future. And so as I was talking earlier, we are planning for a 2-phase construction sequence on this overall project. It's for the phase 1 would consist of the headworks building, which is this portion over here, and that's on the west side of the site. That we're building and planning for future phase and future expansion. And what we're going to do there is just have some empty space for some future equipment. And then in the middle here, we'll have 3 trains with the treatment process basins. And then on the east side, the membrane treatment building, which will house the 3 membrane tanks, the control room, offices, process equipment room, garage shop, and electrical and mechanical rooms, and a chemical room over on the corner. And then for phase 2, we would be expanding the site and essentially doubling the capacity, treatment capacity, and expanding to the north with an additional 3 treatment process basins, trains, and then an expansion to the membrane treatment building on the north side. And that membrane treatment building will have additional 3 more membrane tanks for additional treatment capacity, more process equipment, and separate electrical and mechanical rooms. So when we were putting this together, we needed to essentially design and plan for phase 2 expansion during phase 1 design. And in doing so, we had concerns on whether or not we needed to build this in 2 phases or could construct it in 1 phase and go back later on and construct phase 2 after phase 1. And so we contacted a contractor to get some feedback, and his feedback was that it is constructible in 2 separate construction phases, and with that, he just wanted to make sure we were definitely aware of and considering some design aspects for phase 2, since we're getting fairly close to the existing digesters up on the north side. Oops. Where I have this red circle here, and then the other main feature to be aware of is over here when we're expanding the future process tanks. And so some considerations we're dealing with are some foundation elevations and making sure that during phase 2 construction we have the retention and not needing a contractor to go in and retain soil and structures to limit any undermining of any structures or foundations during a phase 2 construction project. And then there are a lot of underground utilities and pipes running through these corridors, and so that's another consideration that we're going to have to be very careful of during phase 1 construction, and make sure that we can accommodate everything we need to during phase 2. And in this plan, I'm showing the grading and the topography tying into the existing access road on the right-hand side here and the east side near the existing SBR building, and that we would access the membrane treatment building from the east, and this is fairly level. We had a lot of grade to deal with, and so we brought this elevations up for the main level to match similar to what the existing headworks elevation is over in this north corner here. And then during phase 1 construction, we're still planning to be able to maintain the headworks building and keep that online, and then potentially repurpose that after phase 1. But then during phase 2 expansion phase, the existing headworks building would have to be demoed, and then that footprint would be utilized for the expansion membrane treatment building. And then in addition to all the new infrastructure for the phase 1 improvements project, we will also be repurposing the existing SBR tanks, which are these 2 tanks in the SBR building. And one we will be converting into an equalization tank, and that will allow us some flexibility for peak flow events and emergency overflow situation. If something were to happen with our screening equipment, we have an overflow that allows emergency flow to be routed to our storage tank here that's existing, and then we'll just pump that back to our new treatment building. And then expanding the biosolids and digester capability by repurposing the north SBR tank into 2 aerobic digesters, which the district has 2 existing aerobic digesters, and we would be adding 2 additional aerobic digesters for more flexibility, and then also more biosolids treatment capacity. And then with the repurposing of the existing facilities, we would also be including some additional new blowers and new process equipment in the SBR building. So we'll have some demolition and installation of new equipment in the SBR building. Some more process equipment that will be replaced, and would include a new reuse pump system that would allow us to utilize the filtrate from the membranes to supply water to the facility in any seal water for the pumps or non-potable reuse water system at the facility. And so our current construction schedule and design schedule consists of aiming for a final design in September of 2020, to then send that off for DEQ review, and then have start bidding in October of 2020, and then construction starting at the end of 2020 and then running through the summer of 2022. And our current projections for cost estimate are still showing around $35 million for the total project cost. Although the bidding environment is very challenging and hard to predict, and may especially be a little bit more challenging during the recent events. And then this project cost estimate is considered a Class 2 cost estimate for a overall design progress of 65 to 70%. And then I think Ron I'll run through the BIM 360 and the 3D model, and can kind of just show the building site.
Let me get that pulled over for you. You see that all right, Scott?
Yep. Yeah, so I got the 3D rendering of the newer wastewater treatment facility here. We have the Headworks building on the left-hand side, and then the treatment process basins. And I'm showing so this is phase 2 with for ultimate build out of all the tanks and then the entire membrane treatment building. And so this tool allows us to collaborate on the design features, working with the architects and the structural engineers, and the process and then mechanical and electrical engineers are all able to do design work within this feature, and then we can really look at some of the details. And in this rendering, the mechanical and electrical equipment are not in here. They're still working on the design of those. But here's the upper level with the offices and control room, and then the mechanical room right here, and then the blowers and chemical equipment and storage tanks on the southeast side here. And so one of our main accesses would be on this east stairwell going into the facility, and then we have the garage door, and then future expansion phase 2 over here. And then we'll have also some access to the site on the south side to remove equipment in and out of the process tanks. And so we can drop those off the end of the wall here and then get them down onto a truck or get them down for servicing and replace equipment as needed on the south side here. So I think that's about all I had here. I guess a couple cool features with this tool allows us to take some section views through our building and be able to see if we have any interferences or issues with equipment and piping and ductwork. And just going to show a section. So here's a good section view that allows us to look at the different features inside the building. So for phase 2, we have some access stairs to get on top of the tanks in that facility, so operators don't have to always be walking way over into the phase 1 expansion. And then the common shop garage space in between the 2 phases to allow us the bridge crane to run north and south and be able to pull up any membrane cassettes in phase 1 and phase 2 and bring it into the shop space for either replacement or servicing. And with that, I'll send it back over to Ron.
All right, thanks, Scott. And I've done a lot of projects over a lot of years, and all this 3D Revit modeling is new to me, and it's a pretty amazing tool as we can watch the plant design come together and actually see what these spaces look like in 3 dimensions. We're going to get into the resort tax piece of this next. I like to show the kind of the boundaries of what we're dealing with. The image I've got on the screen, the orange boundary is the resort tax district. Inside of that is red, which is our water and sewer district. The black line represents the county line. Left of that is Madison County, right of that is Gallatin. And last fall, we set up 2 committees, one with resort tax, one with the water and sewer district, to see if we could figure out some sort of agreement whereby the resort tax would come alongside of this very big, expensive project to help fund it. And I think most of you know there was a law passed which allows for an additional 1% increase to resort tax collections. See, that requires a local election of our registered voters within the resort tax district. This slide shows kind of some of the bullet points in our agreement that was signed by both the district and the resort tax. The max funding is 60% or up to $27 million of the $35 million project. The 60% number, that came from resort tax. They looked at the collection overall, and their best estimate was that 60% of their collections come from within that area in our district, which includes Mountain Village. There's a second piece of this that funds 100% for a pipeline that goes down to the canyon with the lift station and a force main that brings wastewater from the Kane area back up to this treatment plant. And then also in agreement, we commit up to 500 single-family equivalents of workforce housing development in capacity for that. We also agreed that if we're successful in getting this, that we're not going to be in the 3% queue for additional money for the project, additional 1%, and stay on another pool of requests that we're currently in that cycle through April 30th. Danny, I'm gonna, if you're able on the call, yeah, you're unmuted there. I'm gonna let you kind of explain the drill with the ballots that are going out and kind of how this question's gonna work.
Right. Sure thing, Ron. First of all, I just want to commend the subcommittee that worked on that interlocal agreement. I think it's a pretty big accomplishment for these groups to come together to really find an equitable solution for supporting the community with the expansion of this water and sewer district plan. In addition to that, the 500 SFPs that are committed to workforce housing are really working towards addressing many of the needs that were identified in the community strategic plan, which can be found at ourbigskymt.com. If you all haven't seen that, I would encourage you to go check it out. Workforce housing and affordable housing are one of the largest issues that was identified, but second to that was infrastructure, and in addition to the infrastructure that is necessary for continuing at the rate that the community is growing and keeping up with the needs, is the need for being able to provide for increased environmental water quality and contributing towards our natural environment. So kudos to the group that worked on that. They worked very quickly to make something happen. I realize right now is not the best time to be considering an increase in a tax note. However, that being said, the resort tax is moving into this allocation cycle amidst COVID-19 and the results of COVID-19 with a $2 million deficit, anticipated $2 million deficit. So the fact that the Water and Sewer District has approached the tax board with seeking the funds from the 1% is very commendable. And I hope that the voters certainly consider that when they go to the ballots. So ballots will be mailed on April 17th. Originally, we had hoped that those ballots would have the ability to be delivered by hand here in Big Sky. That is unfortunately not the case amidst this pandemic, and we're asking that all ballots are mailed at the latest.
Your audio feed's breaking up pretty bad, Dan. Yeah, he's using his computer audio.
Hoping that people within the ballots are considering the election.
Thanks, Dan. So some of the audio was a little rough there, but I think we got most of that. So the key thing is the ballots need to get mailed back by the 28th of April. And these ballots are going out to the registered voters within the resort tax district boundary that I showed you. And those elections are different than county water and sewer district elections, because in our elections, property owners get to vote. And that's not the case with the resort tax election. It's just registered voters within the resort tax district. One of the questions we get is how are we paying for it, and what happens if this election question doesn't pass? Our plan is to use the State Revolving Fund Loan Program. This is funding we've used for many of our projects here over the years. The basis for the repayment would be as a revenue bond, which basically means you collect money through your rates and charges, which get added into your quarterly sewer bills. Right now, all of the bonding we've done since 1996 have been done with general obligation bonds, which goes to the property tax. This one will be different. We've looked at the impact of that revenue bond and what it would take if 100% of it gets funded with our user base, and we estimate that it would double the sewer quarterly rate for our customers. The other thing is if it fails, the Canyon project doesn't proceed, we would be back in the 3% pool asking for approximately $2 million annually to help offset and reduce the impact to our customer base for this project. A few other key dates coming up. We've got the next meeting scheduled for April 30th at 1 p.m. I think it'll be another meeting just hitting on high points, addressing any other questions that people may have as we get closer to the election deadline. The election day is May 5. If you are not able to mail in your ballot by the 28th of April, you should be able to drive it to Gallatin County and drop it off at the county courthouse up till May 5th. But we're recommending that people just mail it in by the 28th. As has been the case with all these videos, I post-process them and put them on our website. So we've got a web page with these videos, and as we go through and record these meetings, we put them up so people can go back and watch them, which has been very helpful as the project evolves. We sent out a mailing with our bills, our quarterly bills, and this goes to our customer base, but we sent this out second week of April. Has information about the issue, the 1% resort tax vote, what it does for the community. That's the second side of it. As key date reminders, the QRC code is just a shortcut, so you take a picture of that with your phone, it jumps you to the meeting, go to meeting links. Danny has good information on his website that talks about the 1% for infrastructure vote. I would encourage you to jump over to the Resort Tax District site and look at the information they've got from their perspective. I think it's helpful. And then we're available to answer questions as they come up. You can feel free to call our office or email questions to the email shown there, office@wsd363.com. Either I'll try to answer them or one of our engineers. We've also got a webpage dedicated to the wastewater expansion project, which kind of goes through all the meetings we're doing. We've got links to questions we've answered as kind of an FAQ section, so that's available on our website as well. I think that was my last slide, and with that, I think we'll open it up to questions. Let me unmute everybody. So any questions for general questions or for engineer or anything else for that matter?
Hey, Ron, can you hear me?
I sure can.
Hey, will you explain that workforce housing SFEs, how that actually works? I mean, are they given to builders or are they cheaper? How does that work?
They would be reserved for workforce housing projects. I don't think they'd be given to developments. You know, there may be hookup fees associated with those. But right now, without a plant expansion, we have no additional capacity to do anything in the way of expanding our district or putting more sewer capacity on the table for additional developments for workforce housing. We're not going to be the judge and jury on what qualifies for workforce housing, but we have a capable group in Laura and the the new trust that's being formed locally, and they'll be the ones that kind of set the criteria on what that looks like to qualify as workforce housing. Places where workforce housing can go, I get asked that question. Obviously, I think Town Center could be a player in that. They're already in our district. They have allocations for SFEs right now, and they've got water available to that part. And that's a big key to this whole thing too, is getting water and getting sewer capacity are two different animals. Some places it's easier to get both, other places not. And in the Canyon area, getting water rights for development is not that easy. Well, one of the things that we're looking at, and the reason we entertain even going into the Canyon, was for the fact that if we utilize groundwater disposal down there, and early geotechnical data we've looked at indicates that there is a considerable amount of disposal capacity down there. That could then be used to potentially mitigate for new water rights. And that new water could be used for additional workforce housing development down in the Canyon area.
Thank you.
You bet. Any others? Or by chat, if you want to just type one in. We're looking at the chat stream here if you've got a question. So we've got our next district board meeting will be next Tuesday at 8 o'clock. It'll be done as a virtual meeting like all of our meetings these days. And on our homepage of our website, there's a link to our district board meeting, which is different than these community outreach meetings. So if you want to chime in on that, the public's certainly welcome. And you can get there by going to the homepage and clicking on the go to meeting link for that. And then, like I say, we're going to be doing one more of these at the end of the month to kind of pick up any other issues or loose ends that we may have as far as the project understanding and election issues, all of that. And a question for Scott. So overall, you would characterize we're what, 70% in as far as engineering work?
Yeah, I'd say overall roughly 65 to 70% design.
Another question I've been asked here recently is obviously with the whole COVID-19 crisis that we're up against, why in the world would we be out with an election like this? And the answer is, we've been working on this for months. We put all the wheels in motion to do this special ballot mail election way ahead of this pandemic that's hit our state and country. And once you put these things in motion, you don't get to just pull them back. So the county's doing what they do ahead with the election and the ballots. We've also got board elections coming up with all our different organizations that will also take place on May 5th. So we're doing the best we can to get information out there through these online meetings. And, the feedback we've gotten has been good. We've had a lot of good questions. And so we're staying on this path and obviously hope for the best. But it's a challenging time for sure. So with that, I don't see any other chat questions or anything. Unless there's anybody else, I'm going to go ahead and end the meeting for everybody. Thank you for attending. I'll probably have this posted on our website probably tomorrow if you want to look at it again or forward it over to somebody else to look at. So thank you for logging in.